Welcome back to another episode of Rooted Wisdom. This episode, we're talking about the Farm Service Agency. The annual election period for Farm Service Agency committees begins June 17th, with nomination applications due by August 1st. IFAI's Interim Executive Director and citizen of the Cherokee Nation, Griffith Hotvedt, sits on the FSA board for the state of Oklahoma. She will be providing us with insight into what the FSA does and the opportunities the Indian country has to participate and amplify tribal priorities through the annual FSA election period. Whether you're a tribal producer seeking guidance, a policymaker, tribal leader, tribal citizen, or an enthusiast curious about the intersection of tradition and innovation in Native American agriculture, we invite you to join the conversation. Together, let's explore the rich tapestry of Indigenous agriculture, celebrate resiliency, and illuminate pathways toward a more vibrant and sustainable future for Indian country. The Farm Service Agency, often abbreviated as FSA, is an agency under the U.S. Department of Agriculture. FSA can serve as a vital conduit for delivering crucial resources, technical assistance, and financial support to Native farmers and ranchers nationwide. Within the vast and diverse landscapes of Indian country, the FSA can play a multifaceted role in supporting agricultural pursuits. From providing access to credit and loans to facilitating conservation initiatives and disaster assistance, the agency serves as a lifeline for tribal producers striving to sustain their livelihoods while preserving their cultural heritage. Now that we've got a solid grasp on the foundational role of the Farm Service Agency in supporting agricultural communities across the nation, let's dive deeper into the intricacies of its operations and opportunities for Indian country. Today we have a very special guest joining us on the show. She's not only the Interim Director of the Indigenous Food and Agriculture Initiative, but also serves on the Oklahoma FSA State Board. In her role as an Oklahoma FSA committee member, Carly combines her perspective as a citizen of the Cherokee Nation and tribal food and agriculture legal expert to serve farmers and producers across Oklahoma. Get ready to gain some invaluable insights as we welcome her to the podcast. Good morning, Carly. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning.
So, tell us a little bit about yourself and your role with FSA.
So, my name is Carly Griffith Hotvedt. I am the Associate Executive Director of the Indigenous Food and Agriculture Initiative here at the University of Arkansas College of Law. But I live in Tulsa, Oklahoma on the Cherokee Nation Reservation, and I'm a citizen of the Cherokee Nation. I got involved with the state FSA committee after being appointed by Secretary Vilsack to serve on that state technical committee and representing the interests of producers across Oklahoma, but also having consideration for my role working for effectively a tribal ag law and policy think tank, coming to the table with some subject matter knowledge and expertise surrounding some of the processes and programs of how FSA administers support for agriculture producers.
Awesome. So why is it important for tribal folks to get involved in the FSA county committees?
So the county committees are really the first line of engagement and involvement when it comes to kind of navigating some of the processes with FSA. So producers will usually go to their local office there at the county level to sign up for programs, and the county committee will consider appeals or different types of processes. And representation is really important, not only from a crop production or livestock production perspective, but also from a demographic perspective. Where we sit or where we stand depends on where we sit and what we can see. And lots of people have different perspectives and different considerations, and it's helpful to have a diversity of ideas to be included, not just at the county level, but at all levels at FSA.
So how do you get on the county committee?
So to be selected to participate as an FSA or as a representative on a FSA county committee, you have to toss your hat in the ring to run for the office. You're voted in by folks within that district and serve at that point. The elections are usually staggered, and there's anywhere from 3 to 5 seats within a county committee, depending upon the size of the county, how many producers in the area, et cetera, et cetera. And so that is the way to get involved with that.
Who can vote in an FSA election?
That's a really great question. So generally, producers that have an FSA farm number are eligible to participate and vote within that county committee process. However, there's a special designation for county committee districts that are located on reservation. And that, especially if there is trust land that is within that county or that district that is being voted on. And that at that point, that means any tribal citizen of that reservation or tribe that holds that trust land has the ability to participate in the county election process. And so that means you don't necessarily have to be a producer with your own farm or with your own operation. If you're a tribal citizen, you can vote in that process.
Because a lot of tribes have farms that are tribally owned, and so they're getting that vote because of that.
So that's one of the reasons, but it's looked at as, tribal lands are collectively held for the benefit of the entirety of the tribe. And so it's kind of like imputed ownership. If there is a tribal farm or a tribal ranch that's owned by the tribe and operated by the tribe, that's, one consideration. But a lot of times there are also tribal lands that are maybe leased or operated by not necessarily the tribe itself, but are operated by, maybe other tribal citizens or sometimes even non-native producers, but that interest in the land and how it's being farmed or engaged in production agriculture activities is of critical importance. And so influence and engagement in the election process for the county committee selections is really important.
So you mentioned that people who have an FSA number are allowed to vote, and then tribal citizens, if they have that trust land within that reservation, how do they go about, because obviously they don't have an FSA number, how do they go about proving to the FSA that they can vote?
So at this point, it's by self-declaration. If a tribal citizen wanted to participate, and that's how the FSA would review that. That process is not necessarily without challenges. Sometimes people run for office and may self-declare tribal nationality, maybe without substantiating documentation, but FSA doesn't require that. And that's something that, may come up. But for the most part, it's self-declaration to participate.
What impact do the FSA committees have on tribal agriculture, both locally and nationally?
So a lot of the work that FSA committees do really surrounds the policies and sometimes procedures about how programs are rolled out. Sometimes there's a lot of price setting consideration that's done. That usually happens at the state committee level. And so when you're looking at programs like ARC or PLC or other types of payment schedules that will come along with certain practices, the state FSA committee is asked to review those. Those are developed based on numbers pulled from RMA and from other data sets that are administered by USDA. And the state committee takes a look at those and says, does this make sense for this area? Is this in our experience what we've been seeing? Because sometimes, the recommendations that come out may not match with, what current inflation is doing in the area. Or if there is, a difference between like a statewide data set, and it may be very, very different within, a certain locality from a comparison purpose. And so it gives the state FSA committee the opportunity to do a review and say, yes, this makes sense. Let's go ahead and set that. Generally, the recommendations that come based on the formulas that USDA uses and the state level staff bring to the committee for review are usually pretty well accepted with minimal change. And so I think that really speaks to a lot of the good work that USDA does collecting data and being representative of that. Sometimes there's, some geographic nuances or some production nuances, certain types of production agriculture activities are, common in some states and less common in others. And so if there's a new crop that's being produced that we don't have, local data sets for, we rely on national data sets and kind of try and figure out, does this make sense for this type of crop that's new to be produced here? So that's some of the work. The FSA committees also hear appeals processes, and that starts at the county level, and then depending upon the outcome or even the dollar threshold associated with that particular matter, it may come up to the state committee for consideration.
How does FSA fit into disaster relief?
FSA is the primary program administrator for agriculture disaster relief programs. And a lot of that surrounding, weather-related impacts, really influential in pandemic relief associated with, crop failure, so essentially ag supply chain failures that really were impactful during the pandemic. We see a lot of opportunities for like drought relief. Once the drought monitor gets to D3 or D4 drought, we'll see triggers, and that will create eligibility for folks that are producing, that need access to assistance because they're having crop failures due to, lack of water generally or at specific times, or lack of forage for livestock. And FSA provides disaster relief program opportunities like the livestock indemnity program, like the livestock forage program, other types of supports like that to really be considerate of allowing that producer to stay in operation and be able to weather some of these disaster-related events. The United States has, one of the most supported food production systems anywhere in the world. And that, really speaks to a lot of the stability that we have. Now, that stability isn't necessarily consistent across all demographics or, all geographies. And so we know that there's opportunities for improvement, but generally most folks are able to rely on a supported food system based on the interventions that USDA is able to provide through FSA.
So in April and May of this year, we saw a lot of tornadoes come through parts of Oklahoma and Arkansas, Missouri, and you mentioned triggers. Where would a producer look to see if those disaster relief benefits were like for their eligibility and things like that?
Sure. So one tornado that happened was, not far from my hometown of Tulsa in Barnstall in Osage County. There was a notification that came out via email that indicated that livestock or agriculture producers in that area would be eligible for relief opportunities based on that disaster. And that can look like emergency loans to kind of help people carry over, some of the disruption that they may have experienced or, destruction that they may have seen in some of their on-farm infrastructure in order to allow them to continue operations in that manner. And so those loans become available with the intent to help people carry over and make it through that crisis.
So what is the process if a person is having problems getting service through FSA?
So the first thing I always recommend is anytime that anyone is going to seek support from FSA, the thing that I always say is make sure you ask for a receipt or a record of service. And that kind of helps create a paper trail, regardless of whether you were able to get signed up for a program that day or not. It indicates, what kind of communication that you had. And so asking for that starts that paper trail of documentation, which is really critical to ensure that, you're receiving the type of service that you need and that you have a record of, start to finish, how things are going. You have to ask for an FSA farm number to get signed up. That farm number is critical for for a producer to be able to engage in programs and opportunities to, participate in those programs and receive the benefit from them. If there's issues with getting signed up for a program or eligibility and there's concern there's an appeals process that's available. It starts at the county committee level, and then depending upon the program or the dollar amount, sometimes that can get appealed to the state committee, and then from there it can go to the national level for consideration. The appeals at the county and state level are an informal process. Folks, can show up and advocate for themselves. People can bring, attorneys to represent their interests. But throughout this process, there's also an opportunity for mediation where a producer and applicant who's having a challenge or an issue may elect to go through a mediation process with FSA rather than going through an informal appeals process in that manner. And that gives some opportunity to kind of have a less adversarial proceeding to come through. I've had an opportunity to participate in a few appeals with my service on the state FSA committee, and I think it's a good process because it gives producers and folks an opportunity to share additional information or kind of explain the challenges or issues that they're having, and it also gives the state committee an opportunity to review what's going on at the county level. If we're seeing repeat issues coming out of a certain county, we understand that we may need to make a recommendation to the state executive director to kind of figure out what's going on there. If we're not seeing consistent issues coming out of one county, it kind of lets us know that we're doing a pretty decent job across the board. One of the great things that really kind of helps address the need for appeals is making sure that everybody has access to the same information. I had a chance to work with Maddie Alewine, who handles the communications outreach plan, and was very inclusive of a variety of minority communities, but especially tribes in Indian country. And she actually won an award for that outreach plan. So I think it's really great to understand, there's differences in how people receive information, and making sure that we're not just posting stuff on a website or sending things out by email, but there are, a variety of ways that information is being distributed. And I mean, really one of the easiest things to do if anybody's interested in participating in a program is, give a call to your local office, or give a call, or go walk on down, go in and see if you can take some time to meet with somebody and find out, what options might be available for you. In addition to some of the disaster relief programs or some of the, contracts associated with conservation practices and efforts, there may be some, credit access opportunities, and that might make sense to just go on in and say, hey, what can I learn about here? What's good today? Another thing that I didn't mention with, seeking recourse, if things aren't going how you think that they should, sometimes it's a matter of, hey, can I talk to the county director, the CED? Or if you can't get the response that you're looking for from the county executive director, it may make sense to call a district director. Folks can also call the state office to get some additional information and support. And so there's a variety of, formal and informal opportunities to, seek recourse, whether that's through, program denial or just looking to get more or better information.
So as we wrap up here, is there any additional information that you want to impart to our listeners?
Yeah, I mean, if you're a tribal producer and interested, there's definitely some advantages to accessing FSA programs. Any tribal producer fits into what's called the socially disadvantaged category. And so that can, create some additional access to program dollars, a higher cost share so that you're less out of pocket for some opportunities to participate in programs. And just really encourage, folks to get involved and see what opportunities are out there. You don't have to go it alone. USDA, I like to say, is folks that work there really have a mentality of, how can we help you? Let's find a way to yes. Really looking at how to support agricultural producers and make sure that we have a strong food system within the United States, which is also really important for Indian country to have a really strong food economy and have reliable production, which then contributes to a strengthened food chain and food system within Indian country as well.
Well, thank you for joining us, and we look forward to hearing from you the next time.
Thanks.
Now that you've got all this great information, we hope that you will participate in the county committee elections in your FSA area. The nomination period for those elections will begin June 17th, 2024, and all nominations must be postmarked or received by August 1st. If you need to locate your county committee election area, then you can go to bit.ly/FSA County. There you can click on the search box and type in an address or click Use Current Location. Then you can find your service center and the nomination form on that website. We hope you'll join us for more Rooted Wisdom next month.